Player choice and options are always worthwhile pursuits in your D&D games. In this video, I'll chat about how to not get attached to only one thing. Learn to fall in love with at least two options. If you do, you'll notice that you won't railroad your players as much. The enemy of solid campaign flow can often be a narrow story. When the players start to feel like they know how this is going to turn out, the actions they take lose a great deal. Now, there's nothing wrong with falling in love with an NPC you created, or getting jazzed up about a story arc or an adventure that you designed. But notice the key point here. We're talking about just you. It's what you like. Perhaps your players are feeling something different. On one hand, you have content you're really excited about, and on the other, you want to give your players that sense of freedom. The choice to go left, or is that left, when your key NPC tells them to go right. Now, it must be said, offering choices and options isn't always the best thing. This is to say that there are times when the game is stagnant, and in those cases you need to put your foot down and offer one thing, one hook, one adventure, one direction. If your PCs have spent the last 2 sessions just buying and selling equipment and sort of flip-flopping around a village, it's time to get something going at your table. Throw down the gauntlet, tell them to go out and be adventurers, and offer the hook. Not options, not 3 adventure hooks, not 2 different story paths, just one thing. Tell them to do that one thing. Go to the woods, kill those things, and return with the item. That might need to happen when your game is falling flat on epic story and adventure. But that's not this video. See, in your game, things are flowing well, and the players know how to latch on to the stories that you provide. The problem is, you've started providing stories that lead one way. You're starting to remove the forks in the road. Because you've invested so much into the West, you dare not offer anything of value in the East. Once you go down the route of creating one piece of content and one option, you'll start down the route of railroading. So how do you avoid railroading? And should you? Quite simply, yes, you should. All right, now that we've settled that, how do you do that? When you create 2 things you can fall in love with. Whether it's 2 stories, 2 NPCs, 2 dungeons. Whether they do and how they relate is entirely up to you. They can lead towards the same goal or be drastically different, coming together much later in the campaign or perhaps not coming together at all. Even if they are related, make the paths feel different. One dungeon can be an overland thing, a maze of forest and pockets of Feywild, while another is in the deep and dark corners of the Underdark. Both are dungeons, both don't allow a long rest, and both are filled with nothing but kill you on sight sort of monsters and abominations, yet both are going to look and feel different, if you make it so. Most importantly, make the dungeons have an appeal to you that you can fall in love with. Take the time to plan out the events that happen within. For example, I'm working on some stuff for my campaign. I've been thinking through 2 story arcs. The first one is mostly done, and when I say done, I mean it's done enough in order to get me through a session or 2, if my players choose to go that route. The second story arc has a few notes jotted down, but that's about it. But what I'm doing here is I'm giving my players 2 different ways to acquire some stuff that they're going to need much later in the campaign. Whether that stuff they need is information, items, or quite simply experience and a chance to level up, it doesn't really matter. But what I want is each of the 2 options to be viable. Most importantly, I need to create each option with a level of care and detail that each of them clearly matters to me. Let me give you the brief overview of what I'm doing here. My PCs are trying to stop Githyanki from accomplishing their goals. One way to do that, to stop them, is to kill them. Another is to trap them here on Khorvaire as we're playing in Eberron, so that the Gith can't just go back home, which will eventually lead to some other forces killing the Githyanki. I know my players, and if I was to guess, they're going to want to kill the Gith themselves. But to do so, they'll need to deal with the psychic damage that Gith can dish out. If my players aren't able to find some sort of solution, such as resistance gear or something like that, to deal with the Githyanki psychic damage, they're not going to survive that many battles with them. Now, we know that the overall goal is to stop the Gith. You either need to kill them outright when you find them, or lock them here, so that the Gith just can't do their business by portaling in from the astral plane, taking what they want and portaling back. In order to do this, to stop the Gith, we have two options. Option one that I'm offering for my players is for the PCs to go to a haunted place, kind of an insane asylum of sorts. It's a fancy word for a dungeon, really, and within that place, they might find magic items that'll allow them to resist psychic damage. Getting that stuff doesn't guarantee success in fights versus the Gith, but it's going to help tremendously. If my players only want to go the route of being the Gith killers themselves, they'll want these items. Option one is a dungeon delve, and the reward of what they're going to find within makes that option worthwhile to my PCs. Adding in the elements of Asylum, Madness, and the stuff of Haunts and Nightmare, that's what makes that option appealing for me to create. You see what I'm doing there? Find something exciting and worthwhile for you as the DM, as the creator. But of course, you have to make it appealing for your PCs. Otherwise, why would they want to bother exploring the option that you present? Now, option two is to track down some wizards that can lock down the teleporting ability of the high CR Githyanki, effectively trapping them here on Khorvaire. Once the Gith are stuck here, it's only a matter of time before some higher level hunters, or perhaps the PCs at a later date, track the Gith down and kill them. Either option is viable, and success in either one will stop the Gith from accomplishing their goal, which, as I said, ultimately the Gith basically want to portal in to Khorvaire, into Eberron from the astral plane, take some magic stuff, and leave. If you kill the Gith, obviously the Gith lose. If you seal them here, the Gith will still ultimately lose, it just won't be as quick and as direct. The point is, I've offered two options and I asked my players how they want to do it. The very notion of that starts to give them this sense of freedom, a sense that I don't have the story all planned out and they aren't forced to go along the single story that I've created. All the details about the asylum, the haunted dungeon sort of thing, are something that I'm excited about. Once I start thinking through that terrain and the maps that I'm going to use and the monster stat cards and what miniatures I get to have them fight against, I can go all in module style. I'll detail the things they see when they're in the asylum, and I'll write out all the stuff that I'm going to read to my players when they open the door. The effort here is on purpose and I'm excited about it. Option two, though I haven't put much on paper yet, is eventually going to get the same treatment. If I can't get excited about option two, I need to come up with another option. If you can't get excited about one of your story options, your adventure hook, or your NPC, come up with something else. Don't just pull back and settle onto the one thing that you are excited about. See, if I'm not excited about option two, the storyline that involves wizards capable of removing the Githyanki's ability to portal in and out, I'm not going to put forth the same effort into option two that I put into option one. And then what's going to end up happening is I'm going to start to railroad, because quite simply, option one is just going to be better because I have more, because I did more. The goal here is to put effort, passion, and excitement behind each option, however many you have. Let your players decide what the best one was, whether in entertainment or through how it all affected the future of the campaign. To summarize, create multiple paths and options, but only create the ones you're excited about. Give each option that you present to your players the same detail and effort, but always create at least two. If you don't, there's not really options. When you create at least two, no matter where your players go and what they choose, each is going to feel worthwhile. Granted, you're going to have a folder of content that they didn't get to, the option that they never picked. But the beauty in that is whatever they didn't get to, especially if you've seen some of my other videos on consequences for lack of action. Let's just say the stuff your PCs don't do might provide as much, if not more entertainment than the stuff that they actually do engage with. That's all I have for today. Thanks everyone for watching, and take care.